Hi, and good morning. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Broadcast to Post, Keycode Media's series hosting industry professionals discussing the post-production, broadcast, and live production topics that you care about. I'm your host, Jeff Sengpiel, CTO here at Keycode Media. For today's broadcast, we're digging into the details of the State of NDI with Dr. Andrew Cross. Dr. Cross is the founder of NDI and the president of Global Research and Development at NewTek and VizRT. And we're excited that NDI version 5 was just announced earlier this month, so there's going to be a lot for us to discuss. Before we get into the presentation, wanted to briefly talk about why Keycode Media is discussing IP workflows. Well, Keycode Media is simply the best dealer and systems integrator for installing and supporting large and small broadcast studios, mobile truck and fixed facilities, as well as flypacks and remote production systems. Our success in designing, installing, and supporting broadcast systems comes from our eclectic and experienced team that successfully installs a broad range of audiovisual, broadcast, and post-production equipment solutions. Combine that with our 24/7 Keycode Total Care aftermarket support plans and industry-certified training, your team has everything it needs to implement your ideal system with ease. Lastly, our Keycode Education School provides industry-recognized certification, and if you work for a California qualified ETP media company, your entire staff can get trained for free. We're just about to launch a new engineer track certification as well, so contact us or subscribe to our newsletter to learn more for when that becomes available. Okay, enough with the marketing infomercial, let's get to it. First of all, what is NDI? Just as SDI, or Serial Digital Interface, moved video via coaxial cables and expensive routers, NDI is Network Digital Interface. It's a transport for the protocol of sending video and audio over a local network. It is a packetized system, which allows it to function over standard Ethernet network cabling and switches. It's a royalty-free system that was developed by our partners at NewTek. So NDI comes in two flavors, the compressed NDI-HX and full NDI. NDI-HX is a lot like the H.264 codec. It has an adjustable transmission bandwidth where 1080p 60 HD video defaults to around 10 megabits a second. Now, full NDI is an I-frame, intra-frame compression scheme. So during the transmission process, full NDI consumes a fixed bandwidth in your environment, where HD is going to need between 90 and 180 megabits per second, and 4K clocks in with 200 to 300 megabits required. With NDI transmission, we recommend? No, it requires a gigabit network, which is suitable for applications that require high image quality, like video program production. We here at Keycode will work with a number of Ethernet switch models that will make this work for you. Just because you have open Ethernet ports doesn't mean your network is ready for prime time, or NDI. There's a full suite of free, super helpful NDI tools. Some of the most popular of these free tools are NDI Scan Converter. It lets you capture and present the full screen display of any Windows and Mac device on the same network as an NDI video source, your computer as a video source. NDI Virtual Input, capturing video or audio sources from any NDI source like a camera or a converter or a TriCaster and using it as a camera for Zoom or other video conferencing software. I do this with some of our presentations from the studio here in Burbank. Then there's NDI Studio Monitor. It lets you view an NDI source from anywhere and provides KVM control of a TriCaster and PTC cameras located anywhere on your network. Then you've got the NDI Access Manager. It allows you to manage all of these NDI systems and sources on your network. Who's going where? You decide. So the other additional tools, there's 10 free other tools, including test patterns, webcam input, screen capture, NDI for Adobe After Effects, and Premiere Pro. You can just drop by ndi.tv to learn more. And all of this costs you nothing. So what is new in NDI 5? There's NDI Remote. You can connect with any remote user to receive their video and audio over the public internet by simply sharing a link. This is ideal both to quickly add sources to live production or to receive video from any mobile device anywhere in the world into virtually any video software application. It's the easy button for getting video into your setup, and this has been needed for years. NDI Audio Direct. It's a set of audio plugins that allow virtually any audio software application to take advantage of NDI. NDI Audio Direct lets users select, receive, and generate multi-channel audio with extremely high quality and near zero latency. Then there's the NDI Bridge. Users can securely share NDI sources between remote sites anywhere in the world with a simple and secure network setup. This allows live production teams to stay native in NDI end-to-end, reduces the complexity, cost, and latency across any distance. Then we get into reliable UDP. This new transmission protocol to NDI makes network infrastructure easier to set up, solving network congestion even with low-performance network equipment and without the need of complex configuration. Then there's OS X support. It's deeper support for Apple Silicon systems, and it brings full NDI capability to all iOS, tvOS, and iPod OS devices for the first time. Then there's an improved Adobe Premiere and Final Cut Pro support. Nonlinear editors rejoice. This updated plugin allows output for Final Cut Pro with real-time audio and video frame buffer output, while the Adobe Premiere and After Effects plugin now features improved audio workflow. It's your NLE, your way, anywhere. All right, we'd like to welcome Andrew Cross. We're getting into our interview. So I'm going to be asking a variety of questions about NDI and IP-based solutions for video production, this latest NDI 5 release, and how this is going to impact live production professionals using NDI. After my initial questions, we'll be answering all of the audience questions. Please submit these via YouTube, Facebook, or the Vimeo embedded landing page chat at any time. Let's just get to it. Joining us today, let's just dive in with the questions, and we'll start with the title of what we're exploring. What do you feel the state of NDI is in 2021, and where we come from? Where are we today?
Well, so that's a seemingly easy question, isn't it? But it's not. It's a very good question. I feel great about NDI. We launched it about 5 years ago, I think 5.5 years ago, and I cannot believe where we are today. So first of all, I just couldn't be happier with today's a happy day for me. But when you look at where we are, I think what we are trying to do is start. Our mission was always to connect all video sources anywhere together, and that, for 4 of those 5 years really has been focused on the local Ethernet. And I think that, our goal has always been bigger than that. And so when you look at NDI 5 and look where we are today, our goal is not to just focus within a building, but to connect every computer, every camera, every, source in the world together so that they can all work together. And I feel that, that is where we're going, and that is what technology today is allowing. And, I think that's a very exciting, vision and future and thing for us to be working on. So I'm happy and I'm excited because it feels like we're at a great step, but there's still a lot of exciting opportunities to innovate there. And that makes me feel, really good.
Awesome. I mean, speaking of innovation, you've got a front row seat to it with innovating in NDI. What are some of the unique use cases that you've seen folks use NDI to solve their production and other challenges?
Oh, well, so the unique ones are the ones that have nothing to do with production at all. And us as people who work in the production world don't even think about how many places video are used. I can tell you that there are some huge, interactive displays in major downtown areas in the US. I can't necessarily tell you which ones but that are where people can go and interact with the history of the city, that are all being driven by NDI. Who would think of that? There are interactive things in major places where you kind of walk and interactive things happen on signage. That's being done with NDI. There are the biggest theme parks in our country that are running NDI on some of their displays. Huge stage events with these huge LED boards and things on the side of buildings. Who would have thought? And it's just so cool to see what people are putting together. It's the most exciting part of what I do is seeing the incredible things that all the users are doing with it.
Exactly. Yeah. The desire path. What people
absolutely
say. Hey, I can do this thing with what you've made for me.
Absolutely.
So obviously NDI has been adopted by a lot of video production switchers, but it all started with NewTek. Are there special features that NewTek TriCasters users get to have with NDI 5 that can't be accessed anywhere else?
So that is a good question, and I think that the short answer is no. I think that we view our role with NDI 5 as being a fair one where we try to offer everybody similar benefits. But the reality of it is that we created NDI. We have been working on software-based production systems for 20 years before anybody was, everybody thought we were crazy to be doing it. And so, I think naturally we believe, and I believe that TriCaster is, still a truly remarkable production system. It was, as it exists today, it was designed to be the first full end-to-end IP-based system. And so naturally, I think that it plays the role as, really the native NDI switcher, really remarkably well. And I think that there's no system like it or even close to like it today. As a result, the amount of functionality, the amount of content, the production value that it can produce is unrivaled in the software-based world. And, so NDI and it are both my independent babies, but they have, they're from the same family.
Definitely, and we're coming through a TriCaster, a TC2 today for our presentation, so it makes things a lot easier for us on this end, especially coming out of the pandemic and not having all the folks in the office.
Absolutely.
Let's dig into some of the features, the particular features in NDI 5. We did a brief introduction in my intro, but want to hear how you envision some of these features being used. So NDI Remote, this sounds like kind of a game changer to me. Being able to light up anywhere off the public internet. How do you think productions are going to begin to implement this?
So I think, so our goal, of course, was to think, look, what are we doing with something like HX Cam? What are cameras doing? And how can we make that work anywhere in the world? Anybody, anywhere can make an NDI source, can send a link of that source, can work, anybody with anywhere. And that is what our goal was with NDI Remote. We wanted to make it as best we can that you don't need to think about firewalls, about IP addresses, that it works much like a Zoom meeting would, where you send a link, now somebody can connect to that link and be part of a show. And, I think that is what we see it doing. Now, I am hopeful and want that there's all sorts of creative uses of this that we had never contemplated, and I think that will happen. But I think, our goal, goes back to our desire to allow anybody anywhere to connect with anywhere else. And obviously remote makes that very easy. Now, what maybe hasn't been, really spelled out a lot, but remote on the camera side runs, so we always show it on a phone, but it's running within a browser on the phone. And that is important because, in many ways, browsers are the piece of software that is running on every device everywhere in the world. So this integration where we're allowing video to flow from browsers into a production system is game changing and, is hugely important in the long run. And that is an area that you're going to see us, very much improve as we move forwards and add functionality around that. Because, you think there are now as many mobile devices as there are people on Earth, and exactly. that is what a lot of people think when to the young people younger than us. That is what a computer is them today, and we need to make video in and out of those easy. So this is the beginning of that, and so NDI Remote while it solves a need right now as part of a much bigger direction that we are headed.
Definitely, and 5G is making the bandwidth to do that simpler, so it just dovetails very nicely there.
Absolutely.
So Audio Direct, it's that set of audio plugins, lets any audio software application, including DAWs, take advantage of NDI. What pain point were you trying to address with this? And would you see this as possibly being a replacement for Dante?
So I'll take those questions in kind of in order. So the first one is, what is the pain point? And I think that the pain point, and I have to give credit for to the people I work with at the company, because they, we focus on video, New Tech focus on video, and so we do not always think that while video is incredibly cool, that in any real production, audio is in some ways a harder problem to solve and is being done entirely separately, we have been ignoring that. And when you also can think about COVID, everybody's talking about doing things in the cloud and how they're starting to collaborate with remote people. And finally add the fact that we as a company have always believed that software-based approaches are the future to both video and audio. And it became clear that there was actually a huge need to start bridging all of this together. And so what we started off doing is making it so that, for cloud-based productions, for software-based workflows, it really was important that you could bring in audio sources. You can make them work alongside the video sources, alongside NDI video sources, and products like our own, like TriCaster, and have a really nice workflow that allows you to to solve both problems. And it felt like we had only been solving half that problem while we were just focused on the video. And that was what drove us to create NDI Audio Direct. And I really think that this is going to enable true audio-based software workflows, which is something that just really needs to happen in the market. And when you go out and look even at the software that's out there, the software for audio is actually quite remarkable. And so allowing it to work alongside all the video software and allow the two to really work well together is an unsolved problem, and one that I hope that we're solving. Now, to answer your second question, which is, do we see it as a competitor to Dante? The answer is no, I don't. In everything I told you, it was all about how do you integrate software-based video and software-based audio workflows. And I think Dante is absolutely wonderful when you want to really focus on a traditional hardware-based, and make it interact with real audio mixers. And it does that really, really well. And we will continue to support it, and it will continue to work with our products and with NDI. Just great. But I think this is solving a different problem. And I would argue, looking forwards into where the market is going and needs to go, a more important problem. And that's what we're trying to do with Audio Direct.
Very cool. So NDI Bridge, and I didn't fully understand this myself till this morning when I was listening to someone else talk about it. So users can securely share NDI sources between remote sites, and it's NDI sources that are bundled together. So anywhere in the world, it's a simple network setup. Do you see that as being kind of a replacement for SRT, MPEG-Dash? Is this the way to get to REMI in a very simple and easy to configure way?
So I hope that the answer on is this the way to get to REMI is yes. And I think that NDI Bridge is a product that has been, I don't think that we have yet fully described just how powerful and how flexible what we are doing is, because what we're doing with NDI is in effect, or NDI Bridge is in effect bridging. I'm going to start by saying two networks. And then we allow video to flow freely between those networks. So if I ran a bridge client and you ran a bridge client, we would just see each other's sources. Now, if I bought a new camera and put it on that network or launched a new piece of software, you would just see that piece of software. So it is now like we're working on a local network. It has all the benefits of NDI. So if that was a PTZ camera and you looked at it, you would see that it is a PTZ camera and it can be controlled. The tally would work. If we're using NDI KVM, you would be able to control remote machines. So it really bridges the two networks. And it handles all the discovery, it handles alpha channel, it handles unlimited audio channels. So it's doing a lot of things beyond just taking video source, at point A, send it to video source at point B. And so I think NDI Bridge is doing far more than any other current solution is in that space. And it hopefully makes the management of a large number of sources just completely transparent to people. Now, I describe this as saying this is great when you're connecting two sources. But the thing that we also do is we actually allow, it's not limited to two sources. You can actually, we could have 3 people connect, and now all of our sources would work together. And what that means is that you can also say, just run an instance in the cloud. And then even if your production isn't in the cloud, you use that as a relay point to connect all sorts of other sites together. And now they can all be working together with NDI. So there is a lot that NDI Bridge does that is, really quite revolutionary and I think quite different. And I think we have really, and the team would tell you this, we've really pushed the envelope in terms of what we can do, how we can do it, and how flexible this can be made. So I actually think that it is going to be a real game changer for us all, and I'm really quite excited about it. It's really turned out very nicely.
My mute went off. Especially going up to the cloud and then bouncing out to other places. It's the one to many. It makes that's going to be a very interesting thing for a lot of production folks going forward. There's a question that actually dovetails into that a user, an attendee had popped up with. How is frame sync going to be maintained across those multiple sources between the two networks that have been tied together?
So, oh boy, that's a very complicated question to answer. But the answer is that the video sources will remain in sync. So if you're mirroring 10 sources from a local network into the cloud, they will remain in sync with each other when they're delivered in the cloud. It gets very complicated though, because you have the round trip time of that connection, and now if you're connecting multiple sites, that's where things get a bit more interesting. But it does maintain sync. Within the boundaries of the laws of physics, it will maintain sync.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the other thing a lot of people don't really kind of get the idea of, is that there still is latency on the planet. We can't go through the Earth to cut that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're all limited by the speed of light in terms of how fast video can get from one point to the other. But and the delays imposed by NDI Bridge itself are tiny compared to what typical long distance latencies would be.
Excellent. So reliable UDP. I've used UDP on the post-production storage side before, where you just open everything up and blast. So setup on networks has always been kind of difficult. How's NDI 5 and the use of UDP going to make life easier for engineers with probably smaller and smaller windows of time before they have to go live for an event?
Yeah, so reliable UDP is actually actually really a truly huge feature that we're adding, and I do think that it will probably be the least noticed feature, because if it works, it'll just work and people won't notice that it's there. But it's hugely important. So with NDI we have this benefit that there are tens of millions of people every day using it, and so this has been used in all sorts of installations in all sorts of ways, and so we really do get a good kind of sample of how real networks look. And we have found that there are some real network setup issues that are hard to solve for people. And with NDI, particularly using how we've done it in NDI 4, one of the challenges is that there are some actual common setups that are hard to make work well. And so we actually designed reliable UDP, which I should say it's standards based. It's actually based on top of QUIC, which is the state of the art when it comes to support for high latency connections. And we designed this, in a very clever way that it integrates really nicely with what we're doing for video. And we have seen, really remarkable improvement where, networks that were problematic under previous versions now just work. And so I'm very hopeful that this is going to make really a huge difference to people. And I guess my success will be gauged by whether anybody even notices that we've done it, because hopefully they don't and it just works well. But I think in practical terms, this is actually one of the bigger things that we've done.
Very cool. One of the things we're seeing is there's an update on the Mac side. Is that just to accommodate Apple Silicon, or are there any new features that are being brought forward for Mac users?
We've made a huge effort on the Mac side to improve things. Obviously we support Apple Silicon, and that was actually a lot of work because we have handwritten codecs that are really, really fast, and when you need to move to an entirely new architecture, it's a lot of work. But we have taken it far beyond that. We actually worked directly with Apple, who deserve a lot of credit for helping us with this on getting native Final Cut Pro support, which is just wonderful to see. But even beyond that, we have this new user interface experience on top of NDI tools, which is now fully supported on the Mac, just like the PC. It's actually running the same code on both. So we've really made a big effort to improve the experience on the Mac. And I can tell you that there's another secret feature coming that's not been announced. And I will keep as a secret, but there's some really cool stuff coming on the Mac. And, we've really dedicated a lot of time to that. And, I can also say that we are just seeing amazing performance with our Apple Silicon implementation, which will make people happy too.
Very cool. We'll get to post-production a little bit further down. Wanted to jump in and talk about is the new use of ARM chips going to change the decoding device availability with NDI5? Is that going to lead to a whole new class of devices that can decode as well as, kind of open up the world a little easier for cloud adoption? I hope that it is going to result in a whole new class of devices. We wouldn't build them. We let others build them, and we will encourage them to do that. And so I hope it will. But I think that to me this ARM, us having focused on ARM is actually really important because when one goes out into the market today and thinks about what it takes to implement an IP video device, it typically requires FPGAs, it requires ASICs, and that means that it is hard for vendors and slow for vendors and expensive for vendors to build devices. And we believe that if we can make that much easier, cheaper, make it quicker, then we're doing something that helps everybody and helps create lots of new IP video devices. And ARM is really the enabler of that because we take the cost of developing a custom video device from probably in the hundreds of dollars per unit down to $1 or $2 per unit if you're using ARM, which is game changing and does mean that we hopefully there will become hundreds of new devices and hundreds of new companies trying different things. And I think that it is fair to say that we will probably be the first real IP protocol that has been can run fully in software on an affordable device, which goes back to our mission where we believe that software is what's going to change the world. And so I do think if you just think about the cost reduction to hardware vendors, this can be 10 to 1 or 20 to 1 in terms of cost, and that is getting into the realm of that is game changing. And so I do think that ARM is actually a very important step for us. I think it'll take some time to play out in the market, but I think that when we look 10 years from now, I think it's going to be something that's of huge importance. The democratization of the tools, and that's through the hardware becoming less expensive, and that's the important thing of getting anything to everyone.
Absolutely, and I obviously I've spent a huge part of my career talking about democratizing the tools, and I firmly believe that. But something that has become apparent to me as well is it's not just about democratizing the tools we have, but letting lots of people who didn't do video before or didn't think about video before do it, and that is as exciting as anything else. And I think COVID has shown that this isn't just for producers. Every company needs to be thinking about video because it replaces. You don't need to fly places to do sales events. You don't need to fly places to give product demos, and you can buy things online, but you can offer interactive experiences. So there's so much stuff that can be done with video, and it's not just about democratizing the market exists, but helping create new ones and create new users for video and letting the new generation come out and create novel new ways of doing things that none of us thought about, and that is as exciting as anything else.
Definitely. One thing everyone keeps asking is, what's the bidirectional functionality, or what's the bidirectionality of NDI remote?
So first of all, it's important. So that is a great question, and I've actually been asked that already 3 times today. So it's great to answer it. NDI. Let me take a step back and say NDI is a protocol that moves video from A to B. So just like an SDI connection, it connects your camera to your production switch or your camera to your monitor. The need for bidirectional functionality isn't inherent into the protocol. An SDI cable, if you're trying to do, say a video return to somebody, you're not doing it over one SDI cable. It's not part of SDI. That becomes something that is determined by the application and the use of that video. And so NDI remote in itself allows you to establish a long distance link, but then it is down to how you're using it that determines even if you need it bidirectional. And so I don't view that as a straight NDI problem in itself. That comes down into how applications take advantage of this, because it makes a lot of sense when you're talking about, say, remote calling schemes into a production to have bidirectional. But let's say you're just using it to record a remote stream, bidirectional doesn't even make sense there. So I think this is an application-driven need, not necessarily an NDI-driven need, if that makes any sense at all.
It does. Couple questions about encryption. Are there security risks in using NDI bridge? Is the stream actually encrypted as it goes?
Yes. So first of all, never trust any company that tell you that there's no security risk, because it shows that they don't understand security. So I'm not going to say that. But gosh, we have we taken security seriously? Absolutely. In fact, seriously enough that I know that we take advantage of 256-bit encryption. It has a passphrase attached to it. It is fully encrypted. Every piece of metadata is encrypted. So the video streams are encrypted. Audio, everything's encrypted. So it should be secure. It should be able to go over to the WAN without any problem. That has been our design from the beginning, and we view that as absolutely critical to doing this.
Awesome. So one thing on this new implementations, someone's asking, IndiQ is asking, how do you have your DSLR camera as a video to Skype and others?
Okay, so that's a slightly broader question, but I think that the way to do it would be to use our virtual webcam tool, which allows video to be injected into any application. So it allows NDI to come in and be visible to any application that supports a webcam. And I can actually say that we have significantly improved that webcam plugin for NDI 5. We put a lot of work into that because there's a lot of edge cases for difficult applications that we believe we've now fixed. I'm sure we'll find some more after we ship. But that functionality should also be quite improved in NDI 5.
Very cool. Let's get some of the post-production questions gathered together. First of all, is 10-bit color possible? And also, is there an optimal workflow for using TriCaster with DaVinci Resolve as an editor?
Let me answer the first one first. Answer the first one, 10-bit. NDI actually supports 12-bit. Well, it actually supports 16-bit color, of which 12 are guaranteed to be passed through. But in many cases, it will pass more than 12 bits through. The question, though, is unfortunately that there's not a lot of applications that yet take advantage of this. So I would encourage you to push any application vendors, just ask them about 16-bit support, which we have supported since NDI version 4. So in theory, we support higher color precision than any other protocol that I've seen. And we do view that as important. And it's an area that we that's not been really talked about publicly either, but we have we previously supported that very well on Windows, but not so well on the other platforms. It'll now be supported on the other platforms as well. So we're definitely pushing that forwards. In terms of DaVinci Resolve, I'm afraid that's a bit difficult. The APIs on DaVinci they don't necessarily allow you to implement a frame buffer plugin yet. But what I would say, and I truly recommend this, which is we are open to supporting any number of software applications as we've done. We support all the major NLEs, or work with the makers of the major NLEs to support us. And I would encourage you to contact, the maker of NLEs and the maker of any applications that you want to see NDI support in, and ask them to support it, because often us companies talking together is one thing, but when it comes from the customers, it matters a lot more to all of us. And so, I would encourage you all to speak up and ask for NDI support, because and us as a company, we will always fully back that up. We will help anybody who wants to do NDI integration, do it, and we're very much here to help everybody support NDI.
Very cool. One thing I've run into, living in LA, sometimes there's certain areas of cell networks that drop out. So Omar also had this same thought in mind. What about error correction or dropped frames for bad connections or loss of connections? How is NDI going to approach these errors with the new version?
Okay, so I assume that you are talking about NDI Bridge here, which might be an incorrect assumption, but let me answer it as if you did. So NDI Bridge actually is built on top of it uses something very close to the Google Quick for transport between sites. And this is very beneficial, because this is really the state of its art when it comes to getting reliable connections over long distances where they have very high latency. And so, this is a protocol that supports a lot of buffers in flight. It is very good about handling packet loss. And so it should work very well. It also supports transparent moving between IP addresses, which means that even in cases where you walk, like you take your cell phone and walk into a building and it switches over to your Wi-Fi, it should transparently handle all of those kind of transitions correctly. And because it's largely based on Quick, the benefit is that as the infrastructure around it grows, which it will, this is a standard getting pushed by Google, that everything we do gets better and better. And so I feel very strongly that we currently have the absolute state of the art when it comes to how we connect it. But more importantly, it is also something that is going to continue to get better over time, which is the most we can ever hope for, really.
Awesome. And the other thing you can't account for is, if the camera just turns off, one side of the connection goes away. Nothing really can fix that.
No, I mean, if we could find a solution to that, then we'd be onto something.
We definitely would, and then a whole new tool set comes out at that point.
Absolutely.
So folks are asking about the network basically network selection inside of NDI 5.
Yes.
How is NDI 5 going to be able to select a specific network card for NDI traffic when you've got machines that have multiple NICs that are using multiple networks, possibly bridge on one side, remote on the other?
Yes. So NDI 5 allows you to select the network adapter, the preferred network adapter, I need to phrase it that way, that is used in Access Manager. And it will try to keep the video streams on this network adapter. There are some fringe cases, because networking is very complicated, where it can't always do that. But it is far, far, far improved in this version of NDI. And it does make a really good effort and attempt to make sure that it is moving on the network adapter that you select. I should actually add, going back to the reliable UDP, that we have put a lot of work into making sure that NDI can interact with other network traffic as part of this much, much better. And so cases in which we found that previously we needed to force network NDI onto a particular network adapter to avoid it say interfering with Dante audio, are no longer really even needed. And so we've kind of done two things. We've added the functionality, but we've also reduced the need for it. So hopefully between those two things, we make this better for everybody.
Very cool. Ryan is asking about the state of NDI and the open source community, specifically with FFmpeg.
So, NDI is something that we develop. We give it away for free. It is free for anybody to use, whether they're a competitor of ours or not. We let them use it in any of their applications. We absolutely remain true to that, and we're going to continue to do this. There are, so our goal is to make it so that everybody can use IP video and have fun using IP video, and we don't charge vendors for this, and it is our intent to absolutely continue to do that.
Awesome. Jim is asking, how much networking know-how is going to be needed to connect to NDI bridge setups? What's the level of difficulty there?
Okay, so I would love to say none, but I suspect that in the real world, it's never that simple, is it? So, what you need on NDI Bridge is you really set up a client and a host, if you will. And the host needs to have one publicly accessible port and IP address, which is kind of the minimum you need to connect any two machines. And so one of the machines need to be visible to the other machine. But once you have that, that is all that is needed. And so NDI Bridge puts all traffic, no matter how many streams there are, over a single port. They're all shared on one port, so you don't need to open up many ports, which makes keeping it secure much easier. But it does need one public port and one public IP address.
Cool. How many items can you connect NDI on a single setup?
Oh boy, in theory it's unlimited, but I'm quite I'm quite sure that somebody is going to push that limit and run into problems. But in theory it's a very large number. There were some practical limitations here on, say, if you're not using a discovery server, just how much MDNS traffic you can do for discovery before your network has problems and things like that. But in theory, there's no limitations in NDI itself. But there's the underlying real world part that comes into play at some point, unfortunately.
And I heard of a use case this morning where they were talking about 2,500 NDI sources in cloud, because the networking cloud is a little different than having to have that many switches provisioned on site.
Yeah, I know of a few customers who are well into the thousands, and certainly management of these sources becomes an interesting challenge. It's always strange as us who make this. We thought we had a large installation here at NewTek. We have hundreds of sources, and our tools, like the menus, are all nicely designed to work with a few hundred sources. And then you see a customer who's got a few thousand sources, and it's like, okay, well, we didn't expect that, but yes, there are certainly some that are running easily into the thousands. I don't know of any who've hit 10,000 yet.
Cool. So a couple questions have come up about AV. So what's the view on using NDI in an AV integration environment, such as classrooms? And then also a follow-up on that was, is NDI seen as a potential rival to NVX, SVSI, and others for AV integration? BirdDog seems to be going that way with some of their new products.
So, in an AV environment, I think NDI, I don't need to give my opinion on this. NDI is already very widely used in those installations. I mean, and certainly in classrooms, that there are thousands I know of our customers who are using, our products, which are, entirely NDI based in classrooms. So I think that one's pretty easy. In terms of, the other Pro AV type video standards, I think that, they are really good and they serve a need. I think that need is very different from NDI, though. I think that, NDI, we've stated from the beginning, we believe that the future is a software-based future. We believe that the future of video is going to be driven by companies building innovative software applications that we can all connect together on the network that we already have. And those are the things that we do really, really well. And I think that a lot of the other protocols are more traditional kind of hardware-centric approaches that aren't just pure software-based. And so I think there's a place for both. And I think, we just believe that the future of the world is software, and that is, what makes us special. And I think that is how we remain very different from all the other, approaches that are being taken. But I don't think that they're wrong. And I always welcome, it is great that there are companies innovating. There are, the great thing about IP is that you can put every one of these standards over that same IP cable, And, the internet was made great because people could try different stuff, and some things worked, some things didn't. And that is true on IP. And even though I believe truly in what we've done, we welcome other approaches, because that makes us as an industry stronger and better, and creates, innovation and new ideas, which is good for everyone.
That it is. Scott is asking, what are some guidelines when selecting CPUs and other computer components to maximize the amount of NDI streams that can be handled by a single system?
Oh boy, this is always a difficult one, because of course it's an important question, but it's a bit like, when a friend comes along and say, how fast is a computer? And, there's no single number that answers that, unfortunately. Here is what I would say about NDI. Number one, making it perform well starts in the software applications that use it. And I think we publish guidelines as to the best ways to make it perform well. But like all software development, making high performance software is a challenge, and it is hard to make it perfect, and it takes a lot of time. But that is where performance always starts. After that, you want to make sure that you have a fast CPU. But I will also say that memory bandwidth, your system memory bandwidth, comes into play in a big way as well. And the reason for that is NDI is the CPU code of NDI is actually very heavily optimized. Largely, on both Intel and now ARM, we're running, full Neon. A lot of it is written in assembly. And so what happens in most CPUs is that they then can't keep up with the system memory that is needed to write video in and out. Video frames are quite large, so they use quite a lot of bandwidth in and out of system memory. And so system memory becomes important as well. And then, of course, there's networking, which is important as well, and often the hardest part to measure, because I'll see people saying, well, my video streams are dropping frames. And it's really hard to work out if that is because the CPU is overloaded or the network is not transmitting the frames well. And that's one of the, the big challenges in IP video, is that it's not as easy as it was in SDI, where you have a cable and a monitor and you connect the two, and if it doesn't work, it's somewhere in the distance between them. In IP, it could be in the control room, 5 blocks down, that there's a network switch not working well. So it's hard, but I would say that, applications need to be written well. You want to then have a fast CPU, and memory is more important, and most people don't think about it. Memory speed is important, and then you want to make sure that you've got a good high performance network that is low jitter. Jitter is more important often than bandwidth itself, so making sure that you have low jitter on the network is very important as well.
And just before we went live, I actually had problems where my video out of my computer was staggering because I had too much other crap open. I just went through the list and let's turn off all these things before we get started. One question that's come up, how does bridge discovery of devices work? Is it L3 capable? I'm assuming that's meaning layer 3 capable.
Okay, so bridge, the way it works is you run bridge on one end of the connection and bridge on the other end of the connection. And then it uses, the bridge on one end of the connection just uses regular NDI discovery to see all of the sources that are on that end of the connection. The other end does the same. And then bridge connects the two sources. And so the discovery part is all fully built into bridge and just takes advantage of all the discovery capabilities, including discovery servers, if you want them, that NDI has. So it just builds on top of the stuff that everybody using NDI is already used today, and should just transparently work when the two networks are connected together. And I should add, importantly, bridge is designed to it looks at which video and audio sources are being used at any moment, and then only transmits the data for those ones that are being used. So you can have 1,000 sources in one place and 1,000 sources in the other, and you don't need 1,000 channels of bandwidth between those two places. If you're just using Studio Monitor to view one source in one or the other place, it automatically then selects just that one source. And this is incredibly important because it means that you can connect large number of sources and you don't need to worry about the management of the bandwidth. It takes care of that for you automatically, which is, if anything, maybe the single biggest thing that it's doing that makes it unique.
And the thing is, more than important, that's bloody brilliant. I mean, that's some really cool stuff happening there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really a game changer, because when we, so Bridge started, we actually went and talked to a lot of large customers about the problems they were having with IP, and they were trying to move video into the cloud, and it works really well when you've got 4 or 5 sources and you can open up four port numbers, 4 IP addresses, and you manage them, and they're just permanently there. But once you start scaling to 50, 60, 70 sources, it just doesn't work anymore if you're needing to manually manage all of those connections. And so Bridge was designed, and the reason that we took some time to get to Bridge is because it's trying to solve, I think, the bigger problem. And, NDI was always about freedom, and when you gave people this freedom, very quickly we saw people having, certainly 10, 20, 50 sources on a network. And if we didn't make moving that in and out of the cloud easy and automatic, we weren't really solving anything. And that's why, if anything, NDI is maybe a year or two slower than some others who have just made, simple approaches for moving video over the WAN. And, I'm sure that as time goes by, we're going to learn a lot of new stuff, and that we're going to advance it and make it better. But that was what drove Bridge development and design.
Very cool. Question from Mark about NDI Remote. Is it going to be working via a hosted link? If so, where is it going to be hosted? And he says his point of reference here is LSS's remote guest function.
Yeah, so NDI Remote, because we're offering it for free, it's established, no video content by default goes through any of our servers. It establishes a point-to-point connection between the 2 sources. We act, so look, it's based on standards. We run a stun server in the cloud that allows us to connect 2 devices, but then they establish a direct link between them. And so nothing comes through our servers. We never see the video. And, this is important because, quite frankly, that there are so many NDI users in the world that the amount of traffic that would be needed for this is just unmanageably large. Now, there are times where you can't automatically establish a link between 2 machines because of firewalls or whatever else. And NDI Remote will allow people to set up their own turn server, which is a standard. You can go out and you can set one up yourself, and it will allow you to use your own turn server. Companies, I hope, will even build services around this, for NDI, enabling people to do, if they want to manage service here, that they can use to make it easier to connect. So I hope that we've made it easy, we've made it scalable, but we've made it so that the customers who need more than that, and the companies who want to build things on top of what we've done, can do so.
Very cool. Question from Manny. Any plan in the future to create, say, an NDI feed manager that's going to allow scheduling and switching of feeds? Also, is there a way to set up any user permissions for certain streams?
So let me answer the last part first. So user permissions. We've actually, this is actually largely built into NDI via NDI groups, which are actually incredibly powerful. But we have put a lot of effort into the next version of NDI to make groups more easily accessible and make it so that it is much easier to control the privacy of streams. We do believe that is largely possible today, and if you need even greater security, you can then use discovery servers plus groups, and now nothing is even broadcast onto the network. So that part we should do, relatively well today. In terms of stream management and so on, this is one that we fight with a lot, and I don't yet know what the answer is, so I don't have a crystal ball, but we spend a lot of time thinking what is part of NDI and what is part of applications that we let others build on top of NDI. And there are some great routing solutions out there, and there are a good number out there that actually allow you to build NDI infrastructure really well today. And so we think long and hard about which part of this is for us to solve and which part of it is better solved by letting others do it. And I don't want to rule anything in or out, and I know that there is a lot of demand for this, and so I would say that it is likely that at some point we do something, but we do want to make sure that we're giving everybody the opportunity to innovate here as well. So that's why I'm giving a slightly unsure answer, but it's certainly something that we have thought about, and I would be very surprised that we don't do something that makes it easier for everybody, but not maybe solve every last problem.
And a lot of those solutions exist in today's SDI-based world, where, okay, I know I'm going to need to record the press conference from this location at 3 p.m. Pacific time. We'll start rolling, 8 minutes before and finish 12 minutes afterwards. Just schedule it up. If it's an NDI feed instead of SDI, it's just a different matter of, just a different way of handling that.
Yes. And I know, I know of at least 5 products that can do that today. Just go out and look for the third parties. One of the great things about NDI is that at last count, we have about 17,000 companies who have made products. And I'm not joking, that seems unbelievable. And so there's a lot of NDI support out there in a lot of markets. And I would be very surprised that you don't find something somewhere that does what you want, or somebody who would like to add it.
Very cool. Speaking of adding it, we've got a lot of questions coming in. Do you have extra time to hang?
Absolutely.
Perfect. But let's get the most important question nailed down first before we start to lose people. When's NDI 5 actually going to drop?
I want to keep that a surprise. I'll say this: it's really, really soon. But I've got to keep the mystique going a little bit, don't I? It would be too easy if I just. Let me mess with you all. I'm sorry. There needs to be some mystique about what we do. NDI needs to have its mystique, and the ship date is going to be one little part of that. But I'm telling you that this is not vaporware. It's really close. I'll say that much.
Awesome.
I'm sorry.
No worries. The free NDI camera app keys, have those been released yet?
They have. That we did that. We announced that we were giving away, I think, 20,000, and I kid you not, we gave away 20,000 copies in 2 hours after the press release went out. I did not believe it. I mean, how's that possible? So yes, they have, and it just so far exceeded what we had even planned for. We didn't know quite what to do about that. We wanted this to go on for a week or two, and it went on for 2 hours, and probably people never even realized it happened. So yes, we did. We're still trying to work out, how to best do this, because we were quite taken aback by that. So yes, we did, and I guess it didn't. We wanted to offer this to the community and thought it would last for much longer than it did. We've got to work out something on that. But yes, we were surprised too.
Awesome. It's always good to get a lot of demand. Speaking of demand, there's a question from Sergio. Are there any plans to make the NDI SDK code base open to the public, or is it still going to remain as a binary?
We don't plan that right now. But it's worth explaining why. I think that our goal is to enable, and our primary goal is to let everybody who wants to use IP video to use IP video. We want every application vendor who wants to build software to be able to do it easily, and we do not charge for this. I mean, there's no hidden motive behind what we're doing. We're not secretly raking in lots of cash. We put a lot of time and effort into this. And, when you're looking at things like NDI Bridge and so on, these things take a lot of effort to develop and make usable, to document, to make, actual proper versions around. And the challenge when you open everything up is that now, everybody starts to make slightly different versions of it. It's hard, somebody wants to add something. It's harder to control as a standard. It also slows you down a lot, because now you're working on, potentially you're trying to, accommodate lots of different things. I worry that if we did this, we would lose the vision and the drive of trying to give, NDI character, direction, innovation, because it becomes much harder when you have tens of thousands of participants in that. But our motive is the same. Our motive is to be open. I've given a lot of details about NDI. We give this away for free. And so I believe that to the end user, to the people who are actually using video out there, what we're doing and the fact that we can move quickly and do great things and give them away and make show real innovation and show direction, I think those are what people want most. And we're trying to serve the people using video as our primary goal. And that is why we haven't done it. It is not a philosophical or secrecy principle at all. And in fact, we try to be very open about what we do. And I have spent nights working to help our competitors support NDI and would continue to do so. So I truly believe that what we're doing, our heart is in the right place and the reasons are the right ones. And that for end users, ultimately, what we're doing has made a big difference. And I think we remain true to that.
Very cool. Question from Stephen. Is there, how about using products such as NewTek Telestrator in a REMI production?
It should just work. It should just work with NDI Bridge. And I one of the other cool things we do is because we take alpha channel over NDI Bridge, yes, even things like telestration will work remotely. Cool use case.
Yes. And someone is asking, what's the likelihood of getting NDI HX latency down to regular NDI standards or SDI standards?
So the latency on HX is actually not driven by HX. It is driven by the fact that HX normally uses HEVC or H.264 to encode, and those, just the compression piece, like the has some latency associated with it. On NDI HX2, the HX video is actually passed over the exact same connection as NDI. So the latency in theory should match exactly. And I think if you use something like NDI HX cam, NDI screen capture HX, and then you use Studio Monitor on another machine, and remember to put Studio Monitor under the low latency option, I think that you will see that the latency on HX can be incredibly low now. The problem is we need to fight where the encoders and sometimes the decoders themselves have latency, and that's a bigger problem, but it's not really an NDI problem. It's more just that's inherent to trying to use more complex codecs, and so it's not so much an NDI thing, but we have certainly put a lot of effort on, in things like Screen Capture HX, and we worked with NVIDIA on that to bring the latencies down really quite low. They should be really quite low.
And that's also one of those problems that's going to end up beginning to solve itself through attrition as CPUs get faster.
Very much so. I think that increasingly, what we have seen is that the companies creating video codecs in hardware have become far more aware of that latency is important, because if you think that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, largely this was made to accelerate NLE, because doing live video on computers wasn't the big thing it is now. It was hard and it was expensive, but there's become an increasing awareness that latency is very important in the compression, decompression of video, and all of that work benefits us. So I think it can actually be remarkably good today on HX if particular care is created on the application that's doing the sending and the receiving. But I do believe that it's all going to get just better over time.
Awesome. So you mentioned post-production there, and what better way to finish off something than with post-production? What do you see as some of the possible cool things we'll see NDI used for in the world of post-production?
So I actually should have given this as an example when you asked for some of the things that I didn't expect earlier on, because I never anticipated that NDI would take off in post-production like it has. Because, I would say that today, right now, I know that there's probably, let's say 30, 40 very large TV stations in the US doing all their post-production in the cloud, all using NDI for the monitoring. So thousands of seats. That is something I would have never guessed, and it has clearly been adopted in post-production in a way that me coming largely from a live background never considered. Having seen that, though, I think there were some very interesting things happening there, because I think NDI Bridge means that making it so that you can work collaboratively, where you've got editing or remote, editors, very possible and very easy. And this solves, one of the big problems of post-production, which is often while you're working on something, being able to have others view it and comment on it. And, we have had, really a large number of requests, and we've worked very closely with Adobe on our integration, with Premiere and After Effects. And I think that we're very aligned with them, that there's some really exciting things to be done here for the industry as a whole. And so I see some very exciting things happening in post-production, which is very far from where NDI started, which was primarily for live. So yes, that has been an area I didn't expect.
Collaboration is always good, no matter where it happens.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Cool. And thanks for collaborating with us today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Great to have you, Andrew. And our apologies to Matt Damon. We're out of time. That's it. And thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you so much.